Peace and Black Power. Abib Rodney. How's everybody doing out there? We're back for another Jicho La Kimbunga presents Afrikan Survival Initiative Roundtable. Brotherhood has been keeping these going for about 15 months now, and we're going to keep it going extensively and keep deepening this matter. Today, we have a dynamic presentation, and even just the concept, the theme, the topic of discussion today is one that typically isn't brought up in this kind of public setting with these kind of minds that we have to present to you today, analyzing it for even the average man walking down the street to be able to have easy access to it. So that's why we do this. I am your host, of course, Mansa Fode Ajamu, and we have a dynamic presentation from my brother, Abib Jalil, a Jamaican brother born and raised in America. I can't say too much about him, a devoted Rastafarian. He's cut from the cloth of Nanny the Maroon. He's cut from the cloth of Martin Mosiah Garvey. His ancestors was in the same Maroon communities with their ancestors. And this brother here has, Brooklyn brother, man, born and raised in New York. You wouldn't know he's Jamaican unless he tell you. So this is the next level. And for us, we love to bring our young people, our next generation out, because we don't know everything, old heads. We don't know everything. And these young buds, man, they've been really focusing on how to protect us, make sure we're secure, our money is secure, our everyday interactions is secure. And so this particular roundtable, we'll be discussing cybersecurity in the age of digital activism, which is very, very important because we're all activists. And most people who will see this will probably be activists or connected to it. So it's about you too. In keeping with tradition, we will now bring out our President General for the UNIAACL RC 2020, our Killian Nkrumah. We can't say enough about that brother either, man. It's not all that we get elders to be right there in the ranks with the young bloods, and they can not only keep up with us, but do more work and surpass us. Him and Baba Senghor, they're always on call and ready to go. And we have both of their presence here today, along with a student, someone who is helping us to keep the legacy and the mind state of Dr. Amos Wilson alive within our Jicho La Kimbunga Brotherhood. We have brother Baba Afam as well. So with no further ado, I'll bring the PG out and he will bless the occasion. Right? PG, Hotep.
Hotep, everyone. Abarigani, Alafia, and PV Afodie. My mission here is, at this point, is to make sure that we bring calling of the elders and bring our ancestors into this realm, because we do not go anywhere without acknowledging that energy that moved us and put us in this place. So we go historical. I'm going to go back and call Brother Ignatin, one of our elder brothers from a long time ago. I'm going to call Sister Nefertiti from a long time ago. I want you to understand that we call this energy because this energy lives and exists within us. We call the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. We call Amy Jacques Garvey. We call Brother James, Sister Estelle James. We call these folks because they is the energy that will move us as we learn, as we teach, and as we grow. We also want to call Sister Asada Shakur, who is recently entered the realm of our ancestral strength. I want to call Brother Malcolm, and I want to call Brother Malcolm's grandson. I want us to understand that this energy is powerful. I want us to call Sister I want us to call our sister from the past that are our own ancestors as well. So you must be able to bring that energy which helped shape you into this. So I will call my mother, sister Betty Murphy and my
Ashe.
father, Frank Murphy. I will
Ashe.
call my grandparents, because without that family circle, there would not have been, and we have to do that fastly. So I ask all of you to call an ancestor, whether we hear it or not. They will hear and know that you called them, and I want you to understand. We call Brother Amos Wilson as well.
Ashe.
We have to do that. And Brother Ronoko Rashidi, our traveling ambassador, who is still traveling on our behalf. Ashe,
Ashe.
Ashe, Asheo.
Asheo. Baba, thank you so much, man. Let's get this ball rolling. I'm bringing everybody else out. I guess what we can do is we can fire up the conversation. Everybody can pretty much, introduce themselves briefly to the audience, and then Abib, we're gonna back out. You gonna take care of everything else. Do you need the screen? Is there anything I have to do on this end?
I think I'm good. As long as I'm able to share the screen, I'll be good.
All right. You can do it from the end, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
All right, that's
Yeah, I have the option.
That's a bet. Baba Senghor, what's up, man? What's going on?
Yeah, greetings, Africans. Blacktricity. I'm happy to be here amongst the visionary minds that's gonna get us back to sovereignty.
Ashe. Yeah, Baba fam, how are you, brother?
Peace. I'm good, man. I'm tired, man. I was up till 11:30 last night getting this last minute paper in the school, but I'm here, man. It's like I was looking forward to this. So I'm definitely good, and looking forward to my Amos Wilson podcast at 5 o'clock with Baba Ajay at the Harlem Liberation School. So I'm on it today. I'm ready.
All right. Shout out to Baba Ajay, man. Harlem Liberation School. Brother Abib, I want to get right into it, man, and turn it over to you.
I'm having issues with my feed, though. I don't know how y'all's feed is going, but mine is like starting and stopping a lot, and there's echo. So I don't know what's going on.
Is my feet? Am I sounding funny coming across?
No,
Yeah.
you are, Chief.
We got
Baba
an echo.
Femi.
We got an echo
Okay.
though.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
we
try to
do
fix
have
it.
the
Hold on.
Okay. Can you hear each other?
Yeah. Can y'all hear me
Yeah.
now? Is it better?
Yeah.
Sounds?
Well, we still got a little echo. Whenever you got your mic up.
Okay. Oh God. I'm gonna fix this. Abib, you able to start off? I can fix it while you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. That's better.
Yeah, first off, I just wanted to say, thank you guys for having me here and giving me this opportunity to speak to everybody. So, yeah, I'm definitely humbled to be on this panel, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. You belong here, brother.
Absolutely, brother. I feel that. So, with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and just start sharing my screen and just get right into it. So, let's see.
Single.
Here
Do
we
you
go.
hear echo now?
No, Chief just dropped out. I'm just waiting on Abib, but I don't hear him. I don't hear Abib.
You don't hear me?
Oh, I hear you now.
Yeah, you hear you now.
Oh,
So you
okay. Can you guys see my screen as well?
Not yet.
No.
Not yet. Okay. All right. It says it's sharing, but it's not. I guess it's not showing it. I'll try it one more time. All right. How about now?
Nope. I think something might be wrong on Chief's end.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I guess we can wait for him if we need to. Does it show who's the host? Who's the current host?
No, that's why I said I think he dropped out.
And that's what
Got
took away the echo.
Well, when he mutes his mic, it's fine. But right now, I don't see Chief at all. So I don't even know whether he's with us right now.
I'm gonna try to share my screen one more time. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna try one more time. See if it works this time. What about now?
No.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I guess we gotta wait for him then.
Yeah, I'm trying to call him now.
But I suppose in the meantime, I guess while we're trying to get him back on the line, we can kind of discuss some of the ideas around, digital activism and really protecting ourselves online.
There you go. He coming back. He's coming back.
There he goes.
There.
All right. Can y'all hear me now? Is it a little better?
Yes. Seems better. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it cleared up.
Brother B couldn't pull his.
Are you having a problem sharing the screen?
Yes.
Yeah. I think it may have something to do with the host. I'm not sure, but it wasn't.
There's like
Yeah,
a
I was
little
trying to
Wi-Fi
share.
interference now.
I'm sorry about this, guys. I really don't understand it.
Try it now, B. Try it now, B. Now that Mansar's back.
Absolutely. Are you able to see it now?
No.
No.
Hold on. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, here it comes. Yeah.
Here it comes.
Okay, perfect. All right. Perfect.
Perseverance.
So
Yeah,
I'm gonna
man.
go ahead and share my screen again, so that way it could be a better view. Now that we know what we're doing. All right. Cool. All right. You can see it now.
Yes, it's coming.
It's coming. Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah. So first off, I guess just to introduce myself, my name is Abib Jalil. I was born in Brooklyn, raised in the Rastafari movement, and currently I'm a sales engineer, right? And so I've been working at IT for about 4 years now, but I've always really been interested in computers and been interested in networking and the internet and that kind of a thing. And so what I've learned over the years, I've realized that we're moving into a new era of communication and a new era of how things are done digitally. And this new era is going to be the primary, right? It's not going to be just a secondary addition to our society.
Wow.
It's going to be the primary way that we interact with each other and when we interact with services. And I think that we're really at a tipping point right now in 2025, and it's really important that we become aware of these tactics and these things that are going on. So I want this to be interactive, of course, with the brothers. Even though I'm presenting, if anybody has questions or additions or things that they want to say, feel free to cut in and speak your mind, because I think this is definitely more of a discussion than it is a presentation. So with that being said, we can start it off. So the first thing that I want to do in this presentation is really just talk about the different terms and some of these terms that I'm going to be using, because I know a lot of this is going to be new to people. So I try my best to break down each term that we're going to be discussing. And so the first concept that I want people to understand or get aware of is the term techno-feudalism, right? And so techno-feudalism, if you can imagine, is feudalism 2.0, right? And so of course we understand feudalism to be a system or a governance system where lords who own land, right, would either lease that or have servants or indentured servants on their land, right, working that land for them. And what they provided for them was, of course, food and shelter and clothing, so on and so forth, whatever their agreement was, right? And so techno feudalism is kind of the advanced level of that. So techno feudalism describes how our digital economy resembles that feudalist system, right? So we have a few tech giants, Amazon, Google, Meta, Apple, Microsoft, just to name a few, acting as digital lords, right? And so as the digital landscape expands and now becomes a place where you can really have a footprint, meaning you have servers and data centers and that kind of a thing. Now that you have that footprint that other people are using, right? These companies now become the lords, and we're renting those digital spaces that they control, right? So instead of open markets, they get value through your data, your fees, everything to do with your finances, and from surveillance, right? Just keeping a tab on the things that you're doing online, and that data itself is like gold in the digital realm, because everything that we do is data, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Um, any questions on this part? Any ideas?
No, I don't have a question, but I think your explanation is excellent because you're dealing with feudalism in this technical realm where there are lords, and I see the names you listed, so makes perfect sense. I don't see where it could be a struggle to understand that they are controlling the space. It's like controlling the land that you live on, and then I'm paying you taxes.
Right. Exactly. If you got an apartment, you don't own
Hmm.
that building, so you're paying rent in order to use that apartment and to use those
Hmm.
services. And so the trade-off is, if anything breaks, they're responsible for fixing it. They're responsible for, excuse me, for patching it or making it up to date, right? And so it's the same trade-off in the technical world as well, or in the IT world as well. You don't have to worry about updating your applications or doing all this kind of stuff, because they're gonna do it for you, right? So
They're gonna charge you though.
absolutely, absolutely. So moving on to the next slide. So this is just really just a visual that I wanted to create to show, how this actually works. So we have this term, is called the cloud, right? And you can think of the cloud as computers that you're renting to use. It's the easiest way I can explain it, right? So all of these companies here, so you have Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Oracle Cloud. These are cloud providers in the West. And then you have Huawei Cloud and Alibaba Cloud. And those are cloud providers in the East. And essentially what a cloud provider is, it's just a company that provides the infrastructure for compute resources, right? So they have data centers, they have servers that basically can spin up VMs or virtual machines. And a virtual machine is basically, how do I put this? It's like an instance that thinks it's a real computer, right? So it's the best way I can explain it. And so, with that being said, people who don't have all of these resources, who don't have all of this compute power, they don't have, the computers to do what it is they need to do. Instead of trying to spend all of this money and build out their own servers, they'll just pay Microsoft, pay Huawei Cloud, pay Google to provide that service for them. Now, why is that important? The reason that that's important is because these cloud providers are the backbone to literally everything that we interact with online, right? So when we're talking about social media, banking and finance, right? So just staying on these two. The moment you sign into Facebook, the moment you sign into Instagram, the moment you post, the moment you interact with a service of some sort, the moment you search a keyword on Google, all of these things are captured, right, in social media. Banking and finance, I'm pretty confident all of you have a app of some kind for banking, whether that's Cash App, whether that's Venmo, whether that's your banking app with Chase
Hmm.
or with Bank of America, right? All of those things run on digital infrastructure, and vis-a-vis they run on the cloud to some degree, right? Even when we're talking about crypto and blockchain and how that's being integrated into our financial system, those financial institutions have to be able to communicate with each other in some way, right? That data has to be moved in some way. It doesn't just happen instantly, right? And so this is the backbone of that system. Government institutions. Um, a lot of government institutions are very, very behind when it comes to digital infrastructure. So, you know, I know this is probably surprising to a lot of people, but a lot of government institutions are not as robust as you would think technologically. However, one thing that they are good at is security, right? And so because the cloud has become I don't want to say more secure, but they have developed more ways of securing themselves. You see a lot more government institutions running on these services as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and then you also have global news and mass media. So you can almost put this with social media in a way, right? So as news is disseminated on Twitter, disseminated on these news websites, these newspapers, what have you. That information also has to be stored. That data also has to come from somewhere. It has to be processed, aggregated, sent out, right? All of that is also on the cloud.
Jicho La Kimbunga
So
presents
any
African
any questions on that part? Any ideas on that part?
Well, I don't have again, question. I think you've laid it out clear as to how this system is working and how it's being developed. So it's like for all
Yeah,
intents and purposes, every time you do anything, you're tracked.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah, and all of those points, all of these points are data points or data sources, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those data sources feed back up into the cloud, right? For processing, um, for transfer, so on and so forth. And I'm actually going to talk about that on the next slide. But yeah,
Let me
definitely.
let me ask you a question though, brother. How like the explanation is very very simple. I really like the explanation, and the image makes it very easy to understand what you're saying. Um, for someone who is maybe like not exposed at all to this, right? Um, I think that this image helps us understand that every time we interact with the internet, that that something is going to a cloud, something is going to be tracked, and we see it all the
Mm-hmm.
time. But we don't think about how it can be used to invade on people's privacy, to to cause ruckus. So I want to
Yeah.
ask you, what's some of the ways that, in terms of activism, would activists need to like really like look at this? Can you elaborate in terms of like how activists would need to understand this information?
Well, yeah. I mean, the first thing is, and I'm going to actually talk about some of the things that they can do later on in the presentation. But the first thing to look at and to think about is that every time you open your mouth, every time you do something, you're exposing yourself, right? You're leaving yourself open. Now, obviously, with activism and people standing up for their communities and their rights and things that are happening, you have to be that spokesperson, or you have to be that person in front to some degree. But in doing so, you have to understand the risks. You have to understand, because it's not just, I think a lot of times, when we think about activism, we think of it in this very binary way, right? It's these institutions that we're fighting against, and then it's us on the other side. And no one ever thinks about the chessboard and how both of those can be manipulated from people from that have different agendas, right? From different countries, different organizations, criminal organizations. I mean, everything is at play at once. Once you get on the internet, doesn't matter what you say you stand for, right? You're in, it's the wild wild west at that point. So even though you might put yourself in that box, everybody's still watching you the same. It doesn't make a difference.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. That's exactly what I wanted to elaborate on. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Let me ask
so moving on. Oh, go ahead.
before
Go
you
ahead.
move, and this
Sure.
is only because many of the vehicles and cars that we use are also computerized, and
Right.
I would imagine that when you crank up, it can read your car, where you go, where you are, even if you're not using a GPS system. That vehicle too provides data to one of these sources in order to kind of not keep an eye per se, but to kind of
Hmm.
know what you're doing
So we're in a how do I put this?
any way
If
you
you
want.
interact if you interact with this society in any way, privacy doesn't exist, right?
Gotcha.
Everything is beaming back up to the mothership. Everything, right? We call it uh we call it the Internet of Things, right? IoT. And that's the
Uh-huh.
technical term for it. And what that means is essentially a simple device that you're used to, let's say a refrigerator, right? A refrigerator. Uh, those are now smart, right? And so if they're smart
Hmm.
to any kind of degree, some of those sensors are sending back information. And it could be as simple as it doesn't necessarily have to be nefarious, right? It's just the
Hmm.
fact that it's in communication with something. So it's
Right.
probably sending diagnostic data about the refrigerator itself and how it's working and that kind of a thing. Now to you, that might be inconsequential. It's just diagnostic data. But to somebody else, they can take that information and
Mm-hmm.
decipher certain things about your environment based off of that data. Now, what that is, I don't know. It could be a timestamp, it could be a location, it could be a lot of things. But they can take that
Mm-hmm.
metadata and extract what they need from it. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
That speaks to Chief's point.
Yeah, absolutely. It
Mm-hmm.
does. And I think that we always look for those big aha gotcha moments where it's clear and clean cut. But there's always nuance. And that nuance is essentially what I'm trying to get to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so moving to the next, this is the nuance of what I mean. So this is a very, very simple diagram of how data is extracted and aggregated into a centralized place, right? So all of these things are universal. So no matter where you go, you're in some sort of HR database, right? And these are all the data sources. So you if you get a job, you are a
Mm-hmm.
part of some kind of organization of some sort, there's always going to be an HR database with your name in it, right? You go to the
Mm-hmm.
hospital, any of these things, we call it PII, right? Your personal information is collected, right? Now, there's a lot of laws and rules and regulations and encryption methods that protect this data, but that doesn't mean that data is not at risk. So I just want to
Yeah.
throw that out there.
Right.
You also got CRM databases. So if you work for an organization or corporation, there's places like Salesforce and those kind of platforms. Your information is on there, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
work for a government agency, your information is on there. Anywhere that your information is stored, and it's probably going to be in a CRM database of some sort in a professional world. Um, Finance and ERP, same thing. You're right. You sign up to a bank of some kind. You do financial services of some kind. Whether that's Cash App, whether that's Chase, Bank of America, it really doesn't make a difference. Uh, that information is also captured, and also even though crypto, and I don't want to go too technical, but even though crypto is thought to be decentralized and it can't be tracked, which is true to a degree, the platforms we use to access the crypto can be uh accessed, right? So things like what is it called? Well, things like PayPal, Cash App, where you can get Bitcoin on there, or Coinbase, right? Those are platforms that utilize crypto, but it's not built on crypto itself. So your information can still be accessed from those platforms, even though your crypto itself is encrypted, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then you also have social media and OSINT. I'm going to explain what this word means a little bit later. But it's, same thing I explained a little earlier, right? Your social media, I mean, you're putting in information, you're making posts, you're giving your opinion, you're posting pictures, your location data, all of that stuff is getting beamed into social media. And in turn, all of those data sources then get beamed to an ETL pipeline. And ETL is a term that means extract, transform, and load. So they extract the data from all of these different sources. They transform the data, right? So that way it's usable and readable, because this is at raw data is just a bunch of noise until you transform it. And then they load the data, right? So there are platforms or companies like Palantir that will then centralize all of that data. And they'll centralize it so that way they're able to do a unified search and query, right? So just Mansafote, they can have all his data and they can do a unified search and query on all of his posts, all of his financial history, uh, everything, right? They can set up APIs and links so that way that data can be analyzed. They'll have dashboards and reports, and then of course AI and ML models are also doing that analyzing of that data, right? So the reason why this is significant is because before, a lot of companies were isolated and their data was isolated. So you didn't have this institution over here. This, let's say Harvard University, has a database of students and teachers and faculty. That database wasn't connected to the police department in that local city, right? Those two databases weren't communicating in any kind of way, unless there was some kind of project or some reason for them to be connected. With this, those databases don't even have to be connected because it will pull the information from one institution and from another, and then aggregate it into one centralized platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this is important. You know, those days where things were isolated, like the way we're moving now in the world that we're going to now, right? You just saw in the UK with these digital IDs and this kind of thing, right? Everything that you do is going to be tied to you. And I really, really want people to understand that and to get that in their head. Those days of digital anonymity, it doesn't exist anymore.
All right.
So yeah, yeah. I mean, not to be doom and gloom, but
No,
I think it's important that people realize this, man, because we for a long time I think we've been we've had our head in the sands, and I don't mean that to be to
no,
critique.
no. I don't. If I may, I think you're being straight out, right, frank. I mean, you're speaking truth to power, and
Exactly.
that's what we have to understand. That no, it is what it is, and all these data sources generate the type of information about you that other folks want to have, and how they can use it to use you or use it against you.
Right.
Speak truth
So
to
so
power. That's yeah.
so
Go
let
ahead,
me
Senghor.
let me add something real quick because it's very important what is being said.
Hmm.
We're talking about our lack of understanding the critical nature of material power. I
Yes.
say that again. Our lack of understanding of the nature and the dangers of material power. But I also want to put out there so all of those folks listening, particularly those that ain't with us, we got something called spiritual power. We
Hmm.
got something called spiritual power. It's blacktricity. And even though you might not be able to reach out, touch it, smell it, it's everywhere. And it ain't no material power without spiritual power. So we need to really tap into our spiritual power. But what we're talking about today is we have to be clear that material power is still what holds us bondage mentally. So I'm gonna just stop on that point. I know I kind of went in a
No,
little
not at
different.
all.
I'm trying to get that balance. See, brothers and sisters listening to this got to understand the importance of us using the power that we have access to, which is spiritual power. And that spiritual power will give us the ways and means of how to gain or regain material power so we can straighten things out. But we ain't there. We ain't there. And that's why this security is so important and this knowledge is important for us to understand because too many people don't understand. We've been hoodwinked, we've been bamboozled, we've been miseducated, and we've been misdirected, and we still are being watched every step we take.
You know what you're touching on, I think, is so important, and I want to add to what you're saying by saying that we oftentimes separate uh, science from the spiritual or from magic or from
Ex-
conjure, right, or from alchemy, and all of this is magic. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the resources that are being used to create this technology is extracted from our homeland, right? The atomic bomb that was dropped in Japan, they utilized 90% pure uranium from the Congo in order to achieve that. They couldn't achieve it otherwise, right? The cell phone that I'm using right now to project my image has crystals and all kind of different elements inside of it utilizing electricity. So all of this is conjuring magic, right? And so I think that since we are the purveyors of that to a degree, there's no reason that we can't utilize these tools that really ultimately come in from or sourced from us and from our knowledge base, right? So everything that you're saying is 100% true, right? And I think if we understood that balance, then we'll be able to better utilize that material power as you spoke to, right? Because power is power at the end of the day. And I think
Mm.
that we have somehow allowed them to take the abundance of material power that we possessed, which is of course matched with our spiritual power, and they have been able to conjure the world that we see in front of us. And what I'm trying to do is deconstruct that to show that this is not the be all end all, and that this is very once you understand this, then the solution becomes very clear.
And to Senghor's point, once you understand role, and that's why we bring the spirits into our conversation at the
Right.
beginning, because of the energy and role they play. To Senghor's point, but also to
Yep.
yours, is also understanding the science that has been extracted and developed based on us, and that's
Right.
the magic of, not the magic, that is the value of electricity. Yeah, it's not
Right.
magic, but the value of electricity is making the
Right.
connection between the science, which is what you're presenting, and the
Right.
spiritual essence, it was what Singhor spoke about. It's connecting.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
someone put in the chat, we are our own solution. And I think that's part of what you're speaking to, but you still have to understand the dynamics of this science today.
For
So,
sure.
just shortly, y'all, you right on it. But as Garvey warned us, because it's not about me, he or she, it's about we. But as Garvey warned us, we got to be science par excellence,
It's along.
which is the connection of what Brother Abib is saying in terms of what
Yeah,
real power is all about.
correct. Or actually,
Absolutely.
what we are all saying.
Mhm.
Right? That's what we're saying. Go ahead, bro.
No, I love
You
listening.
opened the door. You
I
opened
I
the
love
door for us to
listening.
do this.
For sure, man, and that's the beauty of this discussion and me being here is hearing those perspectives because it's true, it's very true. And although this may seem doom and gloom to some extent, what this is this is beautiful, because this is the route for us for our liberation. So I'm very
But
very pleased with this
I don't
conversation
see it
so
as
far.
doom. It's not doom and gloom. It's truth.
It's very much so,
It's
very much
truth
so, very much
because
so.
many of us won't understand, would not understand all of this except for our involvement at this point.
Right.
See, and then because of that, and because of electricity, and then realizing you're right. When you go on your app and you move your money around, it's tracked. People know what you're
Yep.
doing. When you
Yep.
do, yeah. See, so question. Sam P.K. Collins has a question.
Sure.
Would like info about alternatives and how to stay off the radar. He wants information about alternatives and how to stay off the radar. I don't know if there's an answer for that, but Abib, you got that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I got some of that coming towards the end, so we definitely gonna answer that question for sure, without a doubt.
Okay.
I got you, brother. Um, but okay, so moving on just a little bit. Why is this important now? Now, I don't necessarily even want to focus on this figure in front of us right here, but I definitely want to put this up to, to show how swiftly that this can happen, right? So this
Mhm.
incident, the specifics of the incident is irrelevant. The point is the action that was taken after the incident, right?
Mhm.
So when this incident happened, within minutes, within an hour, there was a website, and I don't want to expose anybody's actual information, so I'm gonna actually scroll through it really fast. But I definitely wanted to show you that this is a website that came up after the assassination that happened, and it says right here, right on the front, that this website will be converted into a searchable database for over 30,000 submissions, filterable by general location and job industry. Right? This is a
Mm.
permanent and continuously updating archive of radical activists calling for violence.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So within minutes, within an hour, this whole database was thrown up, and they have the location, they have the names, they have pictures of the post and pictures of the person that posted them, and all they did was take it from social media. This wasn't it wasn't like they had to do something special or extraordinary to get this data, right? That's how easy it
Mm.
was to do this. So I want to put this here for people to kind of read through. This website, to my knowledge, is still up. I don't know if it's been taken down, but to my knowledge, it's still up, and that information that they're putting out there is still there. So I'm gonna scroll through as fast as I can. Use your imagination because I really don't want to expose people's information. But so I'm gonna just kind of scroll through, and so you can see what I mean in terms of people's names and location. And I'm glad that it's showing up blurred so that you can't really make it out. But you can definitely see and understand what I mean in
Mm-hmm.
terms of
Yeah.
their ability to gather information,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm
And
gonna do that scroll
and
one
pull
more
it from
time.
the other resources too, which is excellent point that you made.
Right.
They pull it from your
Exactly.
Facebook. They can pull it from your any of those things you use.
Right. Right. And so, we can talk theory as much as we want and what's possible and what's not possible. But this isn't theory. This is a fact. This happened. You know, and this is going to continue to happen as we're living in this digital age and as
Mm-hmm.
we are advocating for ourselves and our communities. Right. So, um, let's see. So my next slide here. So here I wanted to actually talk about some terms, right? Right. We talked about digital surveillance and ways that they're collecting your data, and a lot of that is not necessarily malicious. It's just the way the system is set up. But digital surveillance itself is intentional, right? They're
Mhm.
intentionally watching you or collecting your data or analyzing your data, right? Now, as a regular person, a civilian, a person that's just going about their lives, right? There's no reason for them to be surveilled, right? To a degree, meaning intentionally, unless there was a reason, unless they're doing something. So, if you're an activist, if you're somebody that's doing this kind of work, if you're advocating, right, you are putting yourself out there. You are making yourself a target. You are saying, "Look at me. Look at my organization. Look at what we're doing." You're basically opening the door for people to surveil you, right? So when we talk about digital activism, there is no such thing as not being surveilled or not being watched. That's the whole point of it, right? So keep that in mind. Now, the old school way of doing this was on-device investigative tools. So the old school way is, some simple software installed on a phone, your PC, right? And it will extract everything, your files, your messages, everything, record your camera, that kind of a thing. So those are still being used, especially in law enforcement. But that's kind of the old school way of doing things, right? So one of the new school ways of doing things is called OSINT, and that's open source intelligence. And so what this does is they pretty much will scrape all of the sources, the data sources that are publicly available. So your public records, your social networks, news, forums, um, job listings, all of that stuff is going to be taken and collected. Right now, I don't know if you watch the news, if you pay attention, but if you
Nope.
pay attention to the news, there's always some kind of data breach of some kind, right? Um, Capital One, this company or that company, there's a
Right.
data breach of some kind. Well, that data is not just given back to them, right? When everything is all said and done, that data is now out in the ether, it's out in the wild, right? And so it's not just governments, institutions, again, criminal organizations, individual criminals, individual mercenaries, individual journalists, all of these different entities that's out in the world that are playing for keeps, right? Just to be clear, are collecting and analyzing data. But then you also have people that will infiltrate groups, right? Reddit groups or Facebook groups, and that will come and stir up trouble, stir up discussion, if you will, or division. And then instead of having an agenda, right, of destabilization, it's more of an experiment just to see how you will react, to see what you'll say, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you ever find yourself online, let's say Facebook, and it's just a weird off the wall comment, and you come to educate that person, right? And you don't even realize you're arguing with an avatar, and you're giving it. I'm just saying, and then you're giving it all this information and education, and you're providing books and links and all of this stuff, and all it's doing is taking that information and putting it in the database.
Mm-hmm.
So you're
It's
teaching you're teaching these AI models and these bots and in these language models how you speak, how you present, how you think, the sources that you use, and
Yep.
all of that data is aggregated. And now they can mimic you better than you can.
Mm.
well, they won't be mimicking Singor. That's for damn sure. They can't. They can't breathe that fire. They can't breathe that fire. I
Hey,
don't
Baba
care
Achille,
what he
Baba
does.
Achille,
Yes.
Baba Achille. I'm not gonna go too deep, but I saw something on AI the other day, where in a movie where this woman was using the AI to present herself, and the AI
Uh-huh.
started talking about all of her dirty laundry. So they made a mistake. They made a big mistake. The AI just dropped the bomb. She had to resign from her CEO job because it just dropped the bomb. So I'm just saying, people be
Right.
trying to use the blacktricity, but you know, you're right in a sense from a spiritual perspective, but from another perspective, we got to be very careful of those dreadlockers that are demonic. I put it
Yeah.
like that. I put it like that because sometimes people look at the physical and they don't understand that might be the very Yorugu energy that you need to stay away from. So you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? I just put that out there because you know that's very, very important for us to understand. We
Yeah.
know how Malcolm was assassinated, for an example. We know how a lot of our brothers and sisters have been killed by so-called kith and kin, you know. So we need to be aware though, when it steps up on a whole nother level, like what we're looking at right now in terms of energy. Let's don't underestimate Yorugu
Oh no.
and what
Yeah.
Yorugu will do.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Back in the day, we had definite protocol. I remember even before internet really was big, we had to take the batteries out our phones and do certain things when we was having meetings, right? I'm thinking
Right.
about like the mafia where in public they would cover their mouth and talk. You know what I mean? Like, so how do we adopt the methods that we can use from the pre-internet era and kind of create like the same kind of thing now? So basically, how can I cover my mouth and talk if I need to on digitally? How can I, disguise myself if I needed to digitally? These are the things I really want to know because we can't avoid the digital revolution. It's already here. And like what you're saying here, digital surveillance. We've been getting surveyed for 500 years. And if you really know the history, for thousands of years, going all the way back to Kemet. Surveillance is something that the enemy uses to know our every step. Even if they don't use that data, they track everything as much as possible. And from a purely intelligence perspective, right, you got to imagine, if you want to keep a people oppressed, then you have a desire to know as much about them as possible, what they're thinking, who their loved ones are, what their weak points are, what their strong points are. And so I think that what Abib is presenting is that they're not just surveying you. We know they're surveying us, but he's showing us how they're doing it in the digital world. And this conversation about audit, on-device investigative tools, and then OSINT is very important, open source intelligence, because we probably can Google each other's names and pull all kind of information that we don't even know that is there. We like, man, they're popular on Google. They got 2,000 links connected to my name on Google, right? So just imagine being a federal agent that has to stop me now. Just imagine being the CIA that has to stop me now. They start here. They start with what I put on Facebook. They start with what I say on radio interviews. They start with those things. And so that's why what I would say is we shouldn't avoid the engagement, but we should do it with class and with skill and in a way where we defend ourselves, even with the words that we choose to use in public. You understand? We gotta develop a security consciousness, even with how we communicate within the ranks of this movement, and even in our families, because we pass down communication codes to our children in house that we might not want them to carry into this movement. So we guys got to clean our language up. Martin Luther King said we need to get our language straight. You know, we got to clean this language up so that the message we're trying to put out there can't be criminalized. You can watch it all you want.
There's a statement, Daryl Akim Afam said that we need our own security cyber force.
That's Baba Afam.
A dedicated cybersecurity team. His mic and stuff isn't working, but I just wanted to bring that up. Go ahead. I don't mean to hold you up, brother.
No, not at all.
Abib, real quick before you go, I did want you to, at your own time, talk about what a security team would look like, because you have other people who have to adapt to this surveillance. The other nations in the world and the other races in the world are also having these conversations and trying to deal with it. So, good thing about what we're doing is we're letting the people know that we're thinking about it and having these conversations too, in a way that even they can grasp it and also be able to adapt to what needs to be adapted. But I really agree to this suggestion by Baba FM that the movement itself, for instance, we just came out of the Race First Convention. and there was a lot of areas that was addressed, and eventually there's going to be a booklet out that all of us can adopt and apply to our organizations, to our institutions, to our families, to improve the quality of our Pan-African performance, improve the quality of what we're doing in this world, right? And so I believe that the cybersecurity team is something that needs to be a key ingredient. I also see that about having mental health specialists. We need mental health specialists, cybersecurity teams as well in this movement, because our people are working online. That shit can drive you crazy, right? And so is there so much that needs to happen if we're really going to be effective at getting our message across in this day and time? We're no longer marching with placards. We are in the digital age of the revolution.
I mean, I put it like this, right? Because I'm going to talk about a lot of what we can do to protect ourselves later on. It's actually the next couple of slides. But before I even get to that, I want to ask a question. And this is a very practical, obvious question, right? And you can answer it. If you don't have an answer, that's okay too. But my question to everybody on the panel, all of the data that you post online, your pictures, your passwords, your financial data, the work that you do, your articles, your videos, just everything that you could possibly think of. How many people can actually say that they have a hard drive or a server or a computer with all of the information that they put out into the world in their home, in a safe place?
None of us. But they got it.
Well, are you asking, because I don't do a lot of the posting and things of that nature, but I do have a 5-tier separate drive that I attach to my computer that I can download whatever I do. Are you talking about a tool like that, or are you talking about something different?
Yeah, it could be as simple as a hard drive, right? It could be as simple as a simple SSD or a hard drive, right?
I got you. I'm not so I do that, but I don't. But I also don't do a lot of. I do more communications to the brotherhood and responses to. I don't do a lot of. I haven't gotten the hang of doing a lot of the other stuff, so I depend on the brothers that do it to give me that gateway. So.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, just so for instance, let's say you downloaded all your information off of Facebook, like all your posts, all your just everything, and then you deleted your account. You'll still have all your data. You'll still have everything that you have on your hard drive. And that SSD or that hard drive, most people don't realize this, but you can encrypt that hard drive. So like nobody can have access to it. Like even if you forget the code or the encryption key, you won't have access to it. Like that's how that's how effective that is. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So something as simple as that is and that's just like a one key to give to the people that you can do right now. Just go out and get a hard drive or a thumb drive and put all of your data that you know of that's online in one central place and encrypt it. So that way you have access to it. And if you don't want to share any more of your data, you don't have to, but at least you have it, right? So I mean, that's a very simple thing that we can start doing, but you have to know about that to even envision that, right?
Let me ask you a question, Abib. So what if a person adopted the policy or organization adopted the policy of doing that on like every 3 months or once a year or something like that, just so that it's like a catalog and it's like archived, right? That's the only way that you would really be able to keep and have your own file of what they actually have.
That's right. That's right. I mean, a lot of people, digital archiving or just archiving in general is really big in our communities. I know in the Rastafari community, that's a thing. People have newspaper clippings, they have old books that can't be found anywhere, all of that kind of stuff. Now we're getting to a point where we're digitizing a lot of those records. Now, why do I bring that up? I'm bringing that up because if I'm researching Malcolm X or Marcus Garvey or Haile Selassie and I'm archiving everything about them, why are we not also practicing that with ourselves?
Right. Excellent point.
Yeah.
So that's just some of the things I want us to think about, like as we're thinking this through. It's a lot more practical than I think people realize. So, all right. The good news now. This is the part I see everybody wants to hear. The good news is Africa's lack of digital infrastructure is actually our biggest advantage, right? Right now, you have Google, Meta, you have the European Union, you have so many different kinds of institutions racing, literally racing with everything they have, right? And Mensafo, they know because I sent them an article about it, where they're trying to create digital links to Africa. They're trying to create that infrastructure on the continent, right? Because just like building a highway, like a physical highway, we can look at China and say, oh, well, they're building highways and all this kind of stuff because they're moving resources and they want to, build infrastructure. Well, then they're also building that digital infrastructure as well. And so the advantage is a lot of that infrastructure is not built out yet. And so we now in the grassroots community and our own communities outside of these governments and those big institutions, we can build out our own infrastructure, right? We can take advantage of that and put things in place to where we control it. So let's say Kimbunga now, Kimbunga Media, they have servers in Ghana, right? And it has all of these newspaper clippings. It has, a custom built AI model where you can search everything and all this data, all these old books that no one has access to, and nobody can access that network. That network is locked down. But then you build another data center in Ethiopia. When I say data center, I'm literally just talking about like two computers, in a network, right? You could build that in Addis Ababa and create a VPN or a tunnel between those two networks, and now that center in Ethiopia, that data center in Ghana, they can talk to each other. And I'm not talking about no big corporation. I'm just like how you have your computer set up right now and you're utilizing internet. If you lock down your network and you make it to where only one or two people can access your server or your computer or your hard drive, then nobody can access that if you do that properly. So you can create those tunnels and you can create that infrastructure to where two data points can talk to each other, but nobody else on the internet has access to that. And that's something you can do right now, right? So even when we're talking about fiber optic cables, when we're talking about all these different things that we need for infrastructure, we have an opportunity to build that ourselves and then to therefore have control, build our own cloud, right? The idea of using the cloud is one thing, but the idea of building your cloud, that's something that almost seems impossible, but it's not. It's not impossible at all. A lot of companies build their own cloud, right? Because they worry about security. So cybersecurity is one of the biggest industries in the world right now because it's so important. Ransomware is hitting uh, uh, these corporations every day. With AI don't go to sleep. It's going to hit you with attacks every second, on the hour, on the dot, every time, right? So cybersecurity is very, very important, and a lot of companies will build out their own cloud. So there's no reason that we can't do the same thing.
So you went to where I think some of this discussion, and it's probably in their presentation, how do we build that cyber space? I call it space, cybersecurity. How do we build it? Okay, and you don't, and wait a minute, before you answer, I don't want you to give, because I don't want you to give out specifics. I'm really
Yeah.
am more prone to want to know not so much how, but is it
Okay.
possible for us to do it? Let me ask it that way. Is it possible for us to do it? And if so, that you don't have to do the if so. Just is it possible for us to do it?
Absolutely.
Science,
Definitely.
power,
Okay.
excellence.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. There's nothing in my mind that says we can't do it. That's
Okay.
how easy it is.
Okay. Then
Like,
yeah, no,
yeah.
and the point is, I don't want to make. I don't want to put the answer in this to that question as a part of the program because then it becomes somebody else's information.
Right. For sure. For sure. Well, I mean, I'm definitely gonna give some information, but not everything. So they gonna get a glimpse of it, but we'll formulate that on our own time for sure. But I just wanted to move to the hope part of it
We
now,
all
right?
spinning. There you go.
Yeah. So the next slide now. So this is some of the things that we talked about earlier to Baba Senghor's point, talking about that blacktricity. I want to explain. Being of Jamaican descent, Maroon descent, even in the being of Rastafari descent, being born into the movement, right? We all use language, right, and it's coded, right? So
Hmm.
encryption all encryption is, it's any process of encoding information so that only intended recipients can interpret it, right? So in Jamaica, we have I like to call patois, our language, a continuum, right? It can sound more like English in certain parts, and then it sounds like you just can't understand what's being said if you don't know the language, right? It's a
Right.
I say it's
yeah,
Right. I'd say.
coded for
I'd
real.
say.
right. Now there's
Like
two
back in the
layers.
day when we used to speak pig Latin. Some of y'all know what that means.
Exactly. Right. So it's two layers in patois, or even in in the version of patois that we use in Rastafari, or even the version of patois that they use in the Maroon villages, which is Cromanti, right? To name a few. That's the language. The language itself is just one layer of encryption. So you have to know the words and associations and what they mean. You have to know the pronunciation, and then you have to know the context in which to use those words. That's only one layer of encryption. The second layer of encryption is in Jamaica, we use a lot of parables, right? We speak in parables. We speak in code. We'll say one thing about a refrigerator or something, and it means something totally, completely different. So that's a second layer of encryption. So that's two layers of encryption right there, to where you could be hearing a conversation and think you understand what they're saying, and they could be saying something totally different. So you might get the language and the words and maybe even the context, but if you don't understand that cultural context, you're not going to be able to decipher that encryption, right? And so cultural context is the decryption key. So during slavery and colonial rule, African people used coded songs, proverbs, religious language to hide and encrypt their meanings. So if you didn't have that cultural understanding, then that means you didn't have the decryption key, right? You couldn't decrypt
Right.
the message, because there's so many more layers of encryption, not just the language and the parables, but then you also have time and space and context on top of that. So that's like another. So there's multiple layers of encryption that we've utilized in our African technology. And that's something that I wanted to, just from a practical standpoint, empower people to think of encryption in this way. Because once you look at it this way, then everything else becomes easy to protect or to code, if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Absolutely.
Makes sense.
So this is the first thing. This is the first thing I think that we should really digest, understand, and then implement. We already do it, right? You go to Harlem right now, you go to Brooklyn right now. This is normal for the community to do so. This is not something you even have to teach your children, right? They develop these things as they live and grow, and those communities have that code that they understand, that context that they understand that other people are not going to understand,
Correct.
right? So the next thing is ways that we can protect ourselves. So these are going to be some terms. I have 6 terms that I'm going to explain that I want all of us to really just start drilling into our head. So you can write this down, take a picture, however you want to do it. But the first one that I mentioned earlier is called a VPN, right? It's a virtual private network. So what this allows you to do in very simple terms is it hides your internet activity by sending it through a secure private connection. So instead of your phone or your computer, excuse me, processing that information and being exposed to the internet, you're going to connect to a remote server, and that's where that information is going to be processed. So through a virtual tunnel, you on your computer, you on your phone, connect to another computer, right, or a server, and that's going to use the internet. So you could be in Ohio, you could be in Florida, you could be in Ghana, and connect to a server in the UK or the Ukraine or Japan, and that's where they're going to see you. Or they're not even going to see you, they're going to see that server. So they're going to think you're in Japan, they're going to think they know, they have your IP address, they're going to think they know what you're doing, but it's somebody else that they're looking at. They're not even looking at you, they're not even going to know it's you. Now there's ways around this, but this is one of the most secure and easy, simple ways that you can secure yourself. And 90% of people don't even know what a VPN is, right? And that's the problem.
True. That's true.
Yeah. So the second thing I'm gonna talk about is a firewall. And this is more this should be a little bit more common knowledge, but I think this in this day and age, because firewalls are usually kind of built in, like when you get AT&T or you get Comcast, 9 times out of 10 they're gonna give you a router that has a firewall built in. But because it's coming from the ISP, you don't know if you can even trust that in a way. So you have the ability to buy your own firewalls. So they have physical firewalls, and then they have digital firewalls that you can utilize. But think of a firewall as exactly what it sounds like, right? It's a digital barrier that blocks unwanted traffic or hackers from entering your device or your network. So the moment you start using internet and the moment you have a router, you have a network, right? You have a single point in your home that other devices connect to utilize the internet, which is basically just a big network. So a firewall is exactly what it sounds like. It is a moat of some kind or big wall that protects your network. And you can think of your network like a kingdom. You can think of it like Constantinople, you know what I mean, or the Benin Empire, right? And the Benin walls are the firewall, right? It puts that barrier in between you and others on the outside who wants to get into your network and infect and extract information. But it's a very simple thing. Like I said, if you look that term up, firewall or consumer firewalls or whatever the case may be, anybody can buy one.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have antivirus software. Everybody know what this is. The reason why this is so important, though, the reason why this is so important is because a lot of antivirus software comes with VPNs, and
Uh-huh.
a lot of people set up their antivirus software and don't even turn their VPN on. I know because I do the same thing. I do it all the time. Sometimes I forget to turn on my VPN, and that's why I'm saying it because it's very easy to do. If I do it, I know everybody else do it for sure, right? But that's an easy way that you can get access to a VPN. You don't even have to go ahead and try to find some sketchy looking VPN. If you just want to get it from your antivirus software, they can provide that. So the next three words are, to me, I think this is honestly like foundational. So two-factor authentication. To me, this is foundational, right? I think everybody after this call should activate 2FA on all of their devices, on everything that they use, their Facebook account, their banking, everything that you use and you sign on to, everybody should turn on 2FA. No question.
Yeah.
No question. So what
It's
it
it's
does is
almost
it
required now.
almost,
Yeah.
almost, but there's certain places, there's certain blind spots still, you know. But all it
True.
does is just adds all it does is it adds an extra step to your login. So that's all it does. So like when
Right.
you log into Facebook, it just sends a code to your phone, or you can have an
Right.
app like a authentication app, um, like Microsoft or Google Authenticator, and then that can authenticate your login, right? But it just gets that again when we talk about layers of encryption, it's just that extra layer of security on your account,
Right.
right? So nobody else can access it and take over and that kind of thing. Also, too, a password manager. So a password manager is all it is a tool. It creates and safely stores strong and unique passwords for all of your accounts. And the reason I read it out like that is because these tools can create passwords. So instead of you having to come up with the password, you can be so, and it's a term in IT we call it zero trust. I wouldn't exactly say this is zero trust, but to a degree it is, right? Where even you don't know the password, right? Even you don't have it written down. The password manager will create a very strong password for you and then store it. So every time you log in, it'll put your login credentials, and that those login credentials will be encrypted, so they can't even see it when they input it, and you'll be able to log in securely without having to worry of somebody getting your credentials. So I highly, highly, highly recommend using a password manager instead of typing it in yourself, or instead of trying to, create all these different kind of passwords. You can, like, if you feel like your password is solid and all of that good stuff, use your own. But even then, you want to switch it out like every 15 days, every 30 days. You don't want to keep using the same password.
Right.
And
Gotcha.
then last but not least, be very, very cautious on any network you connect to, especially public Wi-Fi, right? As a matter of fact, I wouldn't use public Wi-Fi at all if I could
Right.
help it. Um,
Right.
and if you are going to do that, avoid logging on to any of your sensitive accounts, bank accounts, social media, crypto, anything. Like I would stay away from public Wi-Fi if I'm being honest. Because they don't. It's just no protection on there.
Right. The public Wi-Fi is more dangerous than anything because any and everybody can get and see what you're doing and get your information. And even because you're on a public, they can go into your computer and or laptop and extract information. So I 100% agree with you on all of it, but on that conversation about the public Wi-Fi.
Yeah, for
I don't
sure.
even
Because
like
I
using
mean,
hotel Wi-Fi.
yeah, I wouldn't. But if you have to, VPN, two-factor authentication, password manager, and you'll be fine. You know what I mean? Those are
Yeah.
so that's this is more like don't do it at all. But if you do it, as long as you're doing all of these other things, you'll be good, right? And that's kind of why that's the reason I put that last, because what's so nefarious about it is we will plug in a cord, not even thinking about it. We buy one from the store. Somebody let us borrow it. There's already one built into the hotel room. However you want to put it, you plug that into your phone, not even knowing that that cord now has literally flashed the entire device, has all of your data, and it looks like an innocent cord. It looks just like the official one, no different, right? That's how easy it is to get your data, and most people they're not aware of it, and they're not thinking about it. They're not protecting themselves because they don't know. So, and that is something that I think is really important to be emphasized. So now this is something that is very simple that we can
Yes.
do on the continent, right? So decentralized communication. So decentralized communication, basically, instead of calling out to these cloud services and cloud providers, you create your own communication networks, small communication networks. So we have emerging technology, which is really older technology that's being repackaged, right? So this is an example of a device called Meshtastic, and what they do is they create what's called a mesh network. And you'll have a device like this. You can set it up in your house, and it will transmit radio signals that can only be picked up by another similar device, right? So this establishes an independent network, bypassing traditional cell service. So if you have a cell phone of some kind or any kind of device that can send messages, now you have one in your house. Another person has one in their house that's all across town, and you guys can now message each other, right? And if a third person one in their house or in their apartment in Accra that's miles away, now you have a third node in that network. You see? So this is a very, very simple way in our rural communities in places like Sierra Leone, Ghana, Ethiopia, places where they don't have service or don't have infrastructure, we can build out our own small scale digital infrastructure. And these devices are very cheap. They're not expensive at all, right? So if there's a disaster, something happens in Ethiopia, a landslide or a storm, just whatever, something happens. Now you have independent tools that you can use to communicate across from village to village and say, "Yo, you
Hmm.
guys okay? Do you need some water? Do you need this? Yo, we're gonna get the word out. We still got internet, whatever the case may be. Y'all can coordinate instead of being instantly cut off from the world or instantly cut off from anything, right? So again, this also ensures privacy and security. And to me, I think if we're going to be operating as communities, right, we're looking at ourselves as these different communities and organizations, then I think that we need to start thinking about having our own infrastructure as well.
I like this one real bad. I like what you just said because this can be implemented at the local level, in neighborhoods, in cities. I know before when I was growing up back in the day, man, all the old heads had a police scanner. Every few houses had a police scanner that rolled all day long. You can walk past and hear people's names getting stopped across town and what was happening. They would tap into the police joint and just listen to that all day. When they was going to do a raid in our area, they'd be like, "Everybody get out of here! They just called this address." So I understand like local communications and how it's been used by the black community to secure us in the first place. We could easily adopt this kind of technology,
Right.
especially as activists and as people who's leading, community institutions.
Absolutely. Yeah, and a lot of this technology is accessible and easy to attain. It's just that when you're dealing with corporations and enterprises that have the money to scale, you get what I mean? So all of this technology is simple. You know what I mean? Like it's very easy to put together, but if you don't know, you don't know, right? So we've always had the ability to build out our networks, and we did actually. So even in Jamaica, right? Jamaica, a perfect example. With the Maroons, we would use our drums to communicate on long distances. And then moving forward, when the sound systems and everything started to evolve, then radio became a way, right? Pirate radio and college radio and all of that kind of thing. That's how we were able to communicate with each other. People in South Africa and all these other places were able to pass messages and give inspiration to each movement in different places. So we started out on this path, very much so. And we're still in this space to a degree. We still have some of our newspapers and some of our radio stations and that kind of a thing. So we're still sending out in the airwaves. But I think this is the natural progression of that, or it should have been, in my opinion. So yeah, this is definitely something that we can do. Something we always did, you know. So, but yeah, so that's pretty much
That's a step up on CB radios.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Hey man, that was a great presentation. This is something that can be shared to anybody, and they're going to say, "Wow, that was easy to understand, and it was culturally conditioned." Because just to hear us using African context in how we want to use the technology is just even discussing it is so important. I appreciate this presentation, brother.
Abib,
thank you.
remember Sam P.K. Collins' question was, how can he not be on the grid?
Yeah, I mean, it's that. I mean, that's the answer. Really, there's no way concretely to not be on the grid until you decouple from this society as a whole, and that's just the reality. Like, if you're gonna be in the West and deal in the West, then there's nothing you can do about it, really, until in terms of being off the grid. You're on the grid, but you can protect yourself on the grid, right? You can shield yourself.
You got to repatriate and go to some village and start fresh, bruh. American Babylon is booby trapped.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
exactly.
So while I was listening to this, I kept on thinking about Gullah Geechee energy, Chief Fode, because, especially when my brother was talking about codifying, and that being one of the only, I shouldn't say only, one of the major African cultural traditions that stuck with us, despite us being, captivated and through, because of spirituality and voodoo or whatever people want to call it, spirituality, it was certain things they couldn't beat out of us. You hear what I'm saying? And that ancestral energy is coming back. As one elder sister once said, our bones are going to come deal with Yorugu. Our bones. And that's deep, because, we don't believe in death in the real African tradition.
Yeah.
And so the victory, one elder once told me, he said, Senghor, we've already won, but we wallow in defeat because we don't know who we are. I said, how you mean we already won and we being killed? He said, because spiritually we don't die. So no matter how much they might kill us or murder us or do whatever, we still are alive in the spiritual sense. And so that's why the spiritual power is so important. But I thought a lot about the Gullah Geechee culture, because over 80% of our brothers and sisters in North America, whether they realize it or not, have some type of Gullah ties ancestrally, and Gullah ties directly to the continent. I mean, and I'm not knocking out all the other ties, the Maroons, et cetera, because there's a whole lot of others too. But that particular Gullah culture seems to outnumber in terms of how many people it has affected, that are in the Western Hemisphere. So speak on that a little bit, because a lot of brothers and sisters from Brazil have shared some things with me that sound very similar, but they're completely different in terms of, but they're African. You understand what I'm saying? Going, Chief? Yeah. Because it is important. And then it is important for what we just did to be able to get to all of our brothers and sisters out there that may not speak in, the Yorugu English tongue. Yeah. That may speak Portuguese or Spanish or any other, of the oppressors' languages. This information is critical that it gets out there, because what I heard Abib lay out is waking us up to the reality of the oppression that is being used against us technically, or technologically, and how we can escape it. How we can escape it and create our own technological, which comes to what Garvey said, we got to be science par excellence. And that's so important to be, we need to understand what that term really means. When we say science par excellence, you got to be metaphysical and look into the atmospheres like Sunrise say, space is the place. And get and deal with that. And I'm serious. And deal with that kind of science. We're not talking about no Eurocentric or Urugu science. We're talking about African science. Where the Dogon, for an example, certain people understood what was going on in the space way before Europeans even knew they could go up in the sky with a plane. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So if we build pyramids, I agree with brother Abib. If we build pyramids, and now we settle for projects, we got to get back to building our own homes based on the pyramid technology, and the hell with, the slavery kind of labor thing that the Urugu had us building projects. You get what I'm saying? And we build them all. Yeah. So we need to get back to that. And that's why that science part. But Chief, I wanted to segue to you to what you thought in terms of that whole Gullah thing. So and what you just heard.
I like what he was saying about the use of language and using cultural-based encryption, because you'll see that throughout the resistance of African people, even on the continent, that we would even create sometimes new codes, new slangs. And if you go into America right now, where people are constantly surveyed, they might be doing the illegal thing. It's nothing but codes all over the place. You go from Baltimore to Philly, you got to catch up with the slangs. So it's that deep that we have to really know that that's our culture for a reason, because our culture comes from resistance. Now with the Gullah Geechee people, we have what you can say are tangible, retained Africanisms. You can still see us doing it. For instance, the ring shout. What we did with the ring shout was we took African culture and we found ourselves in a situation where we wasn't alone. It wasn't everybody's culture where they came from. But where we found ourselves, the strongest aspects of cultures that was universal across became what we made our institutions out of. So in the areas where the ring shot was strong at, you also find that the hoodoo system was strong, because even the circle and the cosmogram is related. Them going counterclockwise instead of clockwise, all of that is from the continent. The singing, the clapping, the using the music to raise the vibrations, and things like that. That's all codified cultural expression that was sending messages to the participants that it wasn't sending to the European. The European would sometimes say, them niggas is crazy. They didn't have no idea we was out there playing an escape, and we was remembering grandma and passing information. So you ever walk past a church and say, man, they in there acting a fool. That's our religious expression was designed to do that. And even when you read about Philadelphia, right, or let me say the Underground Railroad, a lot of people in Pennsylvania would run from plantations in the South, and then when they get in Pennsylvania, they will only move on Sundays, because Sundays the white man didn't watch them, and it was easy to move to attend any church anywhere. So they would move families to churches on Sunday and keep them in the church to the next Sunday, and then move them to the next church. This is how we was moving around. So the church wasn't always what it is today. It was a liberation vehicle. It was an institution used to liberate people. Right. Exactly. And so when you take Gullah Geechee people now, you go into our church or the religious expression, there's levels of codification. It's not only in the Creole language, but it's also in the symbols. It's also in the messaging. It's also in just the feel and the vibration of the Gullah culture is distinctly designed to be African, to feel African, to be African, to remind us that we are Africans. So Gullah Geechee culture is that. It's our constant memory of where we came from. Like you said, Baba, up to 60 to 80% of us have a relationship with the Gullah Geechee Low Country. Either our ancestors was first disembarked there and, got processed there, because you got to think about it like this, right? You had people coming from the Caribbean, but those who would go to the Caribbean before coming to America would be processed there first. So meaning that they would get broken, they would be introduced to that system first. But people who was coming into Charleston, for instance, was coming right from here. No breaking, no nothing. They came right out their societies, and within 3 months, they was in Charleston somewhere. And so we got to remember that these were Africans being enslaved. These weren't people who were born in America and had Americanisms and knew how to speak English. These were raw Africans. And when they got there, among themselves, they found themselves from various places and tried to create one community, and also try to distinguish the African-based community from the one that was becoming more Americanized. So on plantations in South Carolina, you had American-born Africans who call themselves Benyers, and you have the African-born Africans like Gullah Jack. He was born in Angola, but they called him Gullah in Charleston. He was African. You had the Wanderer slave ship in 1858. The last illegal smuggling of Africans, 420 of them, from the Congo into Georgia, up the Savannah River, and really across the United States. Half of them ended up in South Carolina, though, and we found documentation through one of our dynamic young researchers within the Gullah Nation, brother named Dominique Holliday out of Orangeburg. He's actually a cousin of mine, right? But he's a gifted researcher. He can find anything you're looking for, evidence of it. And so he's been doing a great job just using advertisements from back in the 1700s and 1800s and say, hey, they just said this dude had a low country accent. What does that mean? He was talking Gullah all the way in Louisiana, right? So he's pinning. Like you could take a map and he can just pin our history all across the South, from this period to that period. How people were migrating from certain counties, ended up founding certain counties in Alabama and Mississippi, but they came from certain counties in Georgia and South Carolina, and stuff like that. So we do that research because we realize that the culture survived. Even when people got moved away, the culture survived. But the memory of the source of the culture is what the cracker separated. You know that during the internal slave trade, they took children. They didn't want to take grown men who already had families and already had attachments, because they would run away and they would rebel. But they would take small babies and do that. The same thing with the slave trade. A disproportionate amount of our ancestors were not grown people who went through their traditional societies and got their circumcisions and everything before they was kidnapped. So we had people who were children, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, arriving in Charleston and being sold on auction blocks for 100+ years. And those are our ancestors, because the people who enter into Charleston also are the same people who spread throughout the region, from really all the way from the Dismal Swamp all the way down to Jacksonville, St. Augustine area, in Florida, was like a resistance zone. South Carolina and Georgia were African majorities from 1708. Imagine during slavery, you had two places that had black majorities, meaning the majority of the people talking was Africans. So they were speaking an African dialect in majority in South Carolina for over 100 years. That's where you get this Gullah Geechee language. And so we were able to encode it and hide it right in their faces, and play the fool until it was time to slit the throat.
So I'm glad you shared that, Chief, because one of the things we need to do, we need to wake up the spiritual power that we have always had. And as Tony Browder says, we need to raise up our sleeping giant cosmic subconsciousness, and then we need to also learn, because technically I'm not a techie person at all, Brother Abib, but I learned a whole lot with what you just shared, bro. And so I know there are people out there that are less technical than I am that definitely heard this. I would hope people really understand that what Jicho La Kimbunga means is eye of the whirlwind. So when we say eye of the whirlwind, like our President General PG Baba Akili Nkrumah said in opening libation, we don't move without the ancestral energy. So many of our ancestors were the ancestors before Urugu was even in existence.
Yes, sir.
That had the technology of building pyramids, had the technology of flying through space. Yeah, I said it, flying through space.
Yes, sir.
So because that's how deep we were. But then when we got captivated and programmed away from our roots culture or blacktricity, we became something that we were not on a physical level, but still, like what Chief just shared, we couldn't escape the spiritual power. Now, I know we got brothers and sisters that suppress that spiritual power and choose to follow the way of Urugu. I call them black Urugus.
Yeah.
But we got so much African culture that's breaking up, that's coming up from not only Rastafari, from the Gullah, from the Yorubas, from the Voodoo, from the Akan. I could go on down the line. It's
That's
just
right.
so many, but all together, that is the spiritual power together that we need to have as one African people, going back to the visionary thing that Garvey stressed, that we need to be visionary. So Abib, I want to thank you for the visionary presentation that you just shared with us. And I hold it in the light that not only the brothers here or those listening that are conscious do something with it, but everybody that got anything from this continue to study and learn. Because, you know, we got it, y'all. We are the first.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah,
living human being on the planet comes from us, including Urugu. And I said it, I'm a Garveyite,
Yeah.
but I'm very clear that there ain't no humanity without black woman, without the black woman.
For sure.
So
For
as simple as that. So they are lost soul children. We ain't got time to be debating and all that with them. We got to out-organize them, not just mobilize. I was one of the million. I know Baba Keely was too. I doubt if you were Abib, and I doubt if you were Chief, but we was at the Million Man March in 1995. We was one in the millions.
Celebration tomorrow.
And it's so important for us to recognize that if we can mobilize that kind of energy without any problems, think about when we organize that kind of energy, like Garvey did. Like Malcolm organized us, like Martin Luther King tried to warn us. When we got all that spiritual power, there ain't nothing we can't do. So even though I'm not a techie person, Brother B, I'm very clear that this is critical for us to have a team of brothers and sisters that are visionaries and are Pan-Africanists to come up with some type of organized body to guide us through what we need to be doing. Because Africa is in need. And everything we need is on the continent, by the way, you know, resource-wise. So, but we need to have the mindset, and we need to go ahead, PG. We need to have that mindset and just raise our blacktricity to the next level.
Yeah, man.
And to the science of the time, which is what I think the presentation addressed, the science of the time. Because yes, we have within us all time, and I appreciated you explaining the science of the time, because there are a number of us that will not understand what Senghor and Chief and I at times have said, but they will understand what you said, because they are connected to that time. Then what we said can become a part of how it is envisioned moving forward. There is a move to develop cyber activity on behalf of the race. And I appreciated your presentation because it adds to how we can function and then how we can build. There's two questions. How can we take advantage of the tactics and methods?
Our brother David King,
Yes. Hey, shout out to Brother David King. He's a member. He's one of the Jicho La Kimbunga brothers, man. Also,
so can you read his question?
In the PAFM.
Right, I'm trying to read his question. He said two questions. How can we take advantage of the tactics and methods to obfuscate and or advance our strategies? And what are some ways to separate outreach communications from strategic communications? And I think even in your presentation, I think in Abib's presentation, he laid out how that could be done. He addressed that because we can build, and I'll let Abib say it, you can build in your secure pieces and how to communicate, and then you can build in how you can do outreach. But any outreach that's done across this internet is going to be suspect to those pieces that you brought up on how to address it. So we have to develop our own, and I'll leave it to you. So I do appreciate the presentation. It was right on time.
Absolutely. I wanted to let me, if I could touch on that question in a very unique way. So I like the way that he said to separate the outreach from the strategic communication, and I want to remind us that when we talk about our African technology, and we coded everything. Everything was coded, right? So you can look at the Sankofa symbol and gain meaning from that. So that's
Yeah.
code, right? They couldn't read the hieroglyphs until they got the Rosetta Stone, right? So that was the way that they were able to decipher that code, right? That was the decryption key, if you will, the Rosetta Stone. So I would encourage us to look at that model and adapt that to what it is that we're trying to do today, right?
Yeah.
So, and another thing I wanted to say as well is on the other side of that is that you have that code, right? The Sankofa symbol, the hieroglyphs, the Insibidi, whatever you want to call. But then we forget that DNA, which is a very recent discovery, by the way, is our genetic coding that we
Yeah.
inherit from our ancestors, right? So the same Y chromosome that I have is the same Y chromosome my father has, the same Y chromosome my son has, right? Now I'm not going to sit up here and act like I understand fully how to decrypt that code, but I know that that code exists, and I know that that code determines everything about me as an individual. So if you have an external code that can be deciphered with a decryption key, you also have an internal code that can be deciphered with decryption keys. And so what our ancestors left out to us in the wild will activate and decrypt that code that's inside of us. And so I think that's something that we also have to take into account, because our ancestors told us how to access our network, our spiritual network. And I look at altars, for instance, as
Yeah, man.
an access node to the spiritual network that is on the
Yeah.
continent. And so every time you interact with that altar, you're interacting with that spiritual network, right? And
Right.
so I say that to say it is not a coincidence, or it's not lost on me, that our ancestors told us that we had a connection to those that came before us, before the discovery of DNA and the understanding of DNA, right? They just mapped the genome recently, right? And this was a concept that they are just now discovering, that our ancestors intuitively understood to be the case.
Yep.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of technology that I don't understand, and I don't want to sit up here and act like I do understand it. But what I do know is that there are different ways to interface. So we have to be creative and think about how we communicate with each other and how we can get messages to each other, and how to make sure that we separate that from what we're doing on these networks.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That-
I
That's
agree. I think
that's
we really got to. I think you gave us a lot to think about in terms of how we can improve our individual, personal performance online. How we can go about it safer. I'm gonna go back and watch this about 20 times, man. I'm that kind of guy. Until I
Hmm.
start integrating it into my own life. Once
Right.
I get some useful information, I got to master it, and teach people around me. So I think that's really the next step. How can we make this information available to particularly people who need it the most, which is all of us, but particularly people who are serving the people who are in the movement, and I know a lot of people, they scared to even have email, they scared to even be online, but the community needs them, and they need to
right.
also be a part of this online community. I don't think we should be afraid of the internet. I think
No,
we should.
no, no, no. We can't be
No,
afraid of
not
nothing
afraid,
now.
because he gave us some security steps within
Yeah,
the presentation, which when you look back and see that, no, we can't be afraid of it because it's here. And no matter whether or not you online or not, if you use a telephone, you online. You
Right.
they, it, if you use a landline, which you think might be safer, you still connected to them. So to what we have to do, I think, across the board is continue to lay foundations for building out our own systems. And in doing that, utilizing our electricity and that spiritual connection to move it forward, because you're right, we have codes, we have those understanding, we just have to take it and put them in play. Part of what
I should.
we are already on the move to do is to build out a cyber security. And that's where this conversation critical for those who want to know, how do we build our own? First, we have it, Second, we have to implement it.
Ashe.
That's right. Yeah, so I just want to say to everybody out there that that was the key right there. We ain't got time to fear, you know. We ain't got time for fear. And see, you know, and I can understand a lot of people being afraid, but it ain't gonna help you at all. It ain't gonna do anything to help you being afraid. So what you need to understand is they've done everything to us. They're gonna continue to do everything that they can until we release the power to stop them. And that's why we are doing what we're doing right now. So don't be afraid. I just warn y'all, because fear is dangerous. Fear is what they want to instill in us. So when they hang a person from a tree, they're trying to instill fear in the thousands. Think about what I just said. They don't just hang a person in a tree just because they want to hang a person. They hang a person in a tree because they want to instill fear in us, so we will assume that we too could be hung from that tree. Don't be afraid, y'all, because like I say, if it was left for death, as some people it's up, death would die. Y'all hear me? So anyway, I'll stop right there.
And you know,
stop Charles L. James. Stop Charles L. James.
I know you heard it. I know you heard it, PG. You know, because he told me point blank. But anyway, he told me point blank, and he made it clear. I mean, remember, I'm the one that was in the bathroom when he was spitting up blood, and he vowed me to secrecy. He said, "You better not tell my wife. You better not tell anybody." I said, "Mr. James, you got to see some." He said, "I told you, don't tell nobody." Well, Mr. James went on to travel to Africa. I mean, to the UK. He was a president general, y'all, what I'm saying. And that's what Achilles was just laughing, because that's what he told me. He told me if it was left to him, death would die.
Yeah.
But anyway,
he was not
go
the
ahead.
only one to ever say that. But
That's true, but I'm just saying.
No, but it's so crystal when it comes from you, because he gave it directly to you.
Yeah, man.
See,
at a critical time. At a critical time.
And had you not paid attention, you'd have been hit side the head.
That's right.
Look at that.
I mean, I would have been demoted and everything. I wouldn't be sitting here today, because see, that's important that we got to understand. Sometimes when you get an order or a directive from someone who knows what they're talking about, whether or not you agree with it or not, you got to follow it. And so it's a reality. As I grew older, I better understood what he was talking about. He was on a mission, and he didn't want nothing to stop that mission. Yeah, y'all hear what I'm saying? And so it's important for us to understand. And that's why I say, you know, I learned a big lesson. Bob Achilles was absolutely right. A lot of people might have said that, but Mr. James was absolutely clear to learn from him. He was I don't know how else to put it other than he would make sure you learned whether you heard what he said or not. You hear what I'm saying?
Right. And so president generals from that time frame, that's how they run.
Yeah, man. It's serious. Serious.
Mr.
But
Harvey
anyway.
They got beat by Garvey, and you get beat by the master, you best to become a master.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Garvey,
that's real.
Garvey told Mr. James when he was young. Mr. James said, Mr. Garvey, I've been with you all this time. I know that stuff. And he said it. He said, Mr. James, he said, brother, you don't know anything. You got to stay here. Simple as that. And so we need to understand sometime that it's bigger than us. And that's why it's so important to all y'all brothers out there, not just the brothers with us, because we clear, but all y'all brothers out there that think y'all in leadership roles that don't know how to control your ego. You better check yourself before you wreck yourself, because you are doing more harm. You're doing more harm to the movement than you're doing anything to thrust us forward. So you got to get away from trying to lead like your Rugu got some leadership kind of skills. We got to get back to the African way. Mobutu, I am your brother's keeper and sister's keeper. So, but to lead, you got to know how to follow. You can't lead if you don't know how to follow. They go together. Anyway, I'm gonna just leave that alone. Baba Killy, y'all got me on that blacktricity path.
Yes,
it's so important for us to recognize, though, that too many of our own brothers, I'm gonna stop on this point, but too many of our own brothers are leading us away from the movement, and we need to check them, and we need to speak truth to power about that. Anyway, I'll stop right there.
Absolutely. Bye-bye, fam. We can't hear you. Are you muted?
We can't hear you, bro.
Having sound problems all day.
We can't hear him.
No.
Yeah, but while he's doing that, he's also doing something powerful, Chief. You want today on another one of our Jicho La Kimbunga brothers at 5 p.m. in New York, in Harlem. Is going to be interviewing Brother Abib on
Baba Aj Taimba, also another longtime veteran from the movement.
Yeah.
Another longtime veteran who's been putting a lot of work in academic circles, runs a liberation school in Harlem, man. And I'm happy to see that him and Baba FM is working together because they met through the brotherhood. It's powerful to have more men on the ground that got the same mind state. And yeah, man, I'm looking forward to seeing what they come out with too. I wanted to add to what you were saying, Baba Senghor, that we have to always be mindful, and this is to the people out there, because I know those with us right here, we know. Yurugu is a monster. Yurugu is not a human being, and if you begin to act like a monster, then you also lose your humanity, and that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting to rid our own minds, our own bodies, our own spiritual systems from the presence of Yurugu, because he violated our sacred, sovereign, private space and imposed his nasty ways. And so, of course, the cultural struggle is right there. When we're talking about science, you gotta remember, before there was before there was this kind of Western science, like you said, Baba, we was building pyramids. You know,
right.
we were controlling the flow of the Nile River at our will, right? We was already looking at Sirius B already, right? So
exactly.
That tells you that those people who did those things, they had a cosmology. They viewed the world, the universe, and energy and spirits and everything completely different than this westernized way that the Europeans has imposed on us. So it's almost like we're not utilizing the full strength of our culture if we're not centered on our cosmology. That it could be a Bantu Congo cosmology, it can be a Yoruba Ifa cosmology, you know. But once it's centered on the African cosmology, I believe that that's when all of this begins to take place, because from our history and encoded inside the cultural expressions is resistance, is also love for the people and love for freedom. When you get deep into our cultures, they was guided by philosophies of peace. They was guided by philosophies of abundance. They was guided by philosophies of security and brotherhood and sisterhood. That's where we come from. Yurugu distorted that. And now what we have out there in the diaspora, particularly concentrated in the United States, is a distorted African who has been deliberately driven crazy, out of his mind, like Amy Wilson said, right? Been deliberately driven crazy. And we have to be mature enough to drop the egos. It's not personal, it's collective, it's communal, and heal the culture. Because the culture is where our thoughts emanate from. Every thought you have is cultural, it has a cultural aspect to it. It emanates from your culture, right? And so we gotta clean the culture. If the culture is clean, then what we produce culturally would be clean. And politics is an extension of our culture. Music is an extension of our culture. Brotherhood, community building, nation building, freedom fighting is an extension of our culture. It's who we are. And so if I can give any message out there before we get off, man, I just want to say, even if we're talking in the context of cybersecurity, remember that security as a whole is what we're talking about. We're not sovereign if we don't have security. That's the measure. That's the measure. If we're safe, okay, then we can say we got a little sovereignty. But if every time we turn around, somebody getting harassed and beat up and the government shutting down and they rallying dudes into the prisons, then that means we live in Isfet. A lot of times people get online and talk about Mayat, but they don't talk about Isfet, the evil twin sister, right? Yeah. And Isfet is what the European put us in. It took us from Mayat and put us in Isfet. And right now, if you look all around the Black world, we're in disorder. We're off balance. We're competing with each other. So just coming back to this science is returning to the ancient science, the ancient social science, the ancient science of how we intermix with each other to produce maximum capacity productions. We are great people. We excel. We excel beyond anyone's expectations. When them crackers took us to America and they wanted to grow some rice, we excelled. When they took us to Jamaica and they needed us to work and we was terrified, being traumatized and working our ass off because we were scared of the whip, shit, we outworked the whole world. No one has produced what we produced at the last of the whip. So imagine what we can produce for the love of our people. Imagine what we can produce for the love of our motherland. Imagine what we can produce at a broader level. Because I'm a Garveyite that believes that we're here so that we can lead the whole world into a better existence. It's not just about Africa and Africans. It is, but it's not just there. It's there because
it's Africa and Africans first.
Yes,
we first,
free,
and then the world.
The resources and the labor of African people will be free. See, our resources and labor have been captive under all the different systems: slavery, colonialism, neo-colonial. It's the labor and the resources that they hold captive, no matter what kind of political system that we operate or they operate with us. So we got to get down to the nitty-gritty. People need, at the grassroots here in Africa, for instance, right? People need like a reintroduction to culture and science and how they interact and how they produce technology and how technology produces an easier, better way of living, communication, getting things done, right? So we're talking about progress, we're talking about the revolution, actually, the revolution in real life. If Africa is not free, if we fail to unify ourselves at this moment, the Africans in America keep fighting each other and they keep fighting everybody else. And the Africans in Jamaica don't get it together with the other brothers and sisters in the Caribbean full time. Like, this is where we at. This is the Caribbean. This is our region. We holding this thing down. If we don't lock and load right now, we're going to miss an opportunity that our ancestors fought and bled and sacrificed and struggled and prayed for. This is the time that they created for us to slit this cracker throat. Symbolically. But in real life, make sure that the system, the Yorugu system, the system that Yorugu created, the system of Isfet, right? The system of Set, that we destroy this system, that we destroy this evil, wicked way that's in the world today. Right now, my organization, we had to respond to a 71-year-old African-American man who has been living in Gambia for 40 years, married a Gambian woman, and from what I'm hearing now on the ground, I'm at liberty to talk about it because I know one of the elders who's like his right-hand man, and he been talking to me all day. The way he explained it to me was that when the elder first went over there, the customs, the traditions was different. Even the laws was different. He was over there 40 years ago. And when he went there, he brought so much development that the Akalo, or the community leader, the chief, granted him land, and he sold him some land. Now, the land that he sold him, he didn't pay a lot for the land, but it wasn't really about the money because it was about the gesture of solidarity, making sure he had a place within the culture at the time. So back then, they used to have 4 stones. They throw one east, throw one west, one south, one north, and that's your ground. So this brother ended up with like 2 football fields of land in a community that's like desert, and he turned it into an oasis. There's all kind of trees and papayas and bananas, stuff from the Caribbean, stuff from Ghana that's growing. There's also a safe place for the youth that are discriminated against and targeted for being Rastafarians in Gambia. So he's like a father. He's a father figure to the movement and a veteran. One of the things that I learned about him was that he's from New York, and he actually used to attend Malcolm X rallies, and he was active in the movement before he came to the continent. There's not much known about the brother, but what I'm hearing is that he is a great brother. And they framed him up. From what I understand, the Akalo now, the present Akalo, is the son of the man who sold him the land. He's saying that, well, he wanted to get paid too, because he felt like the man didn't pay his father enough money originally. This is the quote unquote reason to start trying to encroach on this man's land and threaten him. So they realized, they said, man, he's a Rasta, so he must smoke marijuana. The Akalo allegedly sent the police, the drug police, to the man, and when they pat him down, he had a joint on him. He didn't have 10,000 pounds. He told him, he said, this is my medicine. I don't cultivate. I don't grow. I don't sell. This is medicine. And they took him anyway to the police. This was back in June. From June to Wednesday, he had been getting harassed. They've been running him every time they take him to the station, they hit him for money. And he's an elder. He's 71 years old, so it's happening in slow motion for him, mind you, right? And you know, he's an old head, so he's not getting a lawyer. He's just kind of trying to handle it himself, talking his way out of it. And over the years, they always harass the Rastafarians in Africa, especially in Gambia, with the highly Islamic places. They don't like that Rasta stuff, man. And so in Gambia, they terrorize Rastas basically, right? Officially, like they can walk up on you and just treat you bad because you're a Rasta in certain places, and everybody laughs like it ain't nothing. They look down on Rasta there, from what I'm understanding. And so this brother was a beacon of light. They locked him up on Wednesday from a hearing, and they put him in one of the worst prisons in West Africa. And they chopped his locks off. He had his locks since he was like 5 years old. And he's 71. They chopped his locks off, bro. I felt, man, I want to cry over that shit right now, bro. Woo. Bro, they chopped his locks, bro. And he said he was going to go on a hunger strike because they did it. And so that's what made everybody say, hey. It's when you get the buzz about us sending information out, because he said, you chop my locks, I'm going to die. I'm not eating.
Yeah, you cut my spirit. You cut my spirit off.
Yeah. So now he's been moved to another prison. He has an attorney, a pretty good attorney. The attorney's working with him. He was supposed to get out yesterday, but they remanded him again. They made him pay, I think it was like $600 yesterday, but then they remanded him, said they want a whole nother $600. So he's still incarcerated, but I believe that his son or his relatives were able to reclaim his hair, and they didn't chop him bald. He still got hair on his head, so there's a chance that they can, fix it back. But it's the point that they chopped it, and the fact that he has a religious and cultural right to wear his hair any way he wants to wear his hair. And this comes from the draconian colonial laws that are still in the books when we come back to Africa. In Sierra Leone, the Sierra Leone law is based off British law. It's not based off of African, right? Gambia too.
So Chief, I don't want to go too deep because it's late, but the UNIA in 1920 understood how important that whole piece is, and of course, one of the Declaration of the Rights was saying that you don't cut our hair. And even in the Islamic tradition, and I know this is different, even with beards and all like that, it's a spiritual thing. So not just Rasta. I mean, it's a spiritual thing, period. And when you cut someone's hair, and of course you got ritualistic things they go through, but when you do that, you're cutting down the spirit of man or woman. And so the UNIA had a thing at that time, just so people understand, one of the Declaration of the Rights was that Yorugus don't cut our hair when they incarcerate us. And that was in 1920. And here this is 2025.
Yeah.
And an elder Rasta brother who took Africa back to Africa to help rebuild Africa is getting his locks cut. So Chief, I hear exactly what you're saying, Chief. And so we need to be appalled. There is a petition going out. There is some pressure, but we need to spread the word to the world, because this ain't the first time stuff like this has happened around the world.
Yeah.
And we need to be very clear that we need to take a stand on all this, because remember what I said earlier, when they hang one person, they're trying to affect 1,000.
Yeah.
When they cut this brother's hair, they're trying to steal fear in a whole lot of others. Trust me.
Yes.
And the rest.
So we need to be ready and fight this psychological warfare that's going down. We don't need a lot of weapons to do that. All we need is ourselves. So keep speaking. I'm glad you mentioned that though, Chief, because when we talk about cyber security, we also are talking about security of our lives.
Hell yeah.
It is it's one thing. And Baba Keely might want to spit something, because you said something earlier about the Race First rally or the Race First convention. And PG, we did have a technological table but we also had
Right.
a military and security table, and Baba Akili was chairing that. So, and I
Okay.
know for a fact he had a couple of our other Garveyites there that are techies, and I know that they talked about that being important. And I know Baba
Right.
Akili already knew what we were doing with the Jicho La Kimbunga brothers. But anyway, maybe Baba Akili want to
Yeah.
close us out with something to give people hope, because we are moving, y'all. We ain't
Yeah,
playing.
man.
We ain't
Yeah,
playing.
man.
Baba
Close us out,
Akili.
Baba. Close it out,
I
PG.
don't speak truth to power. All of the energy that is vibrating, and folks need to pick it up. When we met as a part of the Race First Convention, cybersecurity became a topic, and also communications became another topic of the table. And it is important that today, with this particular program, we address those issues, and we address them from a cultural perspective, a cultural entity that speaks to the spiritual, because it was a spiritual table that speaks to the spiritual relevance to all of what we've done. So first, Brother Abib was a powerful programming, and also to both Senghor and my brother Chief Fode, very powerful energies in speaking to the spiritual reality and how that energy has to elevate us to the next level. And so in closing out the program, what I want folks to go away with is understanding that all of this conversation speaks to our security in every place we be, because there is no reason an African man who went back to Africa, who spoke the joints, should have had his locks cut off because he got land doing things the right way. And there is no reason that we should be afraid to function in this world, because the enemy has instilled in us doubt as to who we are. And what we're gaining from our youth that are very positive and productive is we are going to learn a new way, which is still the old way. Understand, it's new in terminology, but it's old in philosophy, how we
Yes, sir. Yes,
function and
sir.
how
Yes,
we
sir.
grow and how we will be secured. And I will also say one God, one aim, one destiny,
One destiny.
and one Africa.
One
Africa.
That's right. That's
Jicho
right.
La Kimbunga, brothers.
Jicho La Kimbunga, y'all. Hey,
Thank you,
check
Brother
us
Big.
out. Check us out. We'll be back next month. Abib, thank you so much, man. Salute, soldier. We're gonna spread this out and make sure other people get the message. We love y'all out there. It's all about the power. It's all about the people. Salute. Salute.
Word.